Let's keep it in the KUAM News Zoom room where we have Education Superintendent Jon Fernandez joining us for a weekly Edu update. Good morning, John.
Day, good morning, Sabrina, Chris, and Jason, and your team over there. Good to see you again. And of course, yes, it is our weekly update. And yesterday we were very glad to be able to open our first set of community learning centers. So that is one of our updates for this week. As you know, through this pandemic situation, it's really been tough to try to continue with the mission of educating our kids. And one of those challenges really has been access to technology and access to the internet. And of course, we continue to try to push laptops out. And by the end of February, once we get the bids back on the 22nd, we are working on having the internet solution at home be available to those students who are interested. But the CLCs are kind of part of that same strategy. And yesterday at 8 of our schools, including CL Tichenor, where we were able to host a group for our presentation, we were able to open up parts of the school facilities after hours. And at these community learning centers, you would definitely be able to have access to laptops and access to the internet signal at school that currently isn't used after hours. So we thought that would be one way to at least start off by trying to make that available. We had members of our board there. But I think also importantly, we had members of our community, including Mayor Hoffman at Sinahanya, which is the village where CL Tichenor is located, as well as Mayor Savaras, who is a member of the Guam Education Board representing the Mayor's Council, who also oversees, in her village, about 9 schools under her watch. And so it was good to have the partnership of our mayors and support of our mayors, because it really is a community school partnership that we're talking about and which we want to see grow. So part of our effort right now is to get the word out, now that we know that we're able to function and open, get the word out to all of our school stakeholders and to let them know it's available. Right now, the centers are open on Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, and they are going to be operated from 3:30 to 7 in the afternoons on those days. And depending on what the demands are from the community as we go along, we're going to want to see if there's a need to expand services or provide programming for those sites to include things like tutoring services, opportunities for organizations who work with youth to be able to come in and utilize the sites, things like that. So we're grateful that we were able to launch, and we look forward to working with our mayors to make sure those centers are accessible and sustainable over time.
I guess I wanted to ask about the couple students who tested positive. What other information can you give us on that, John?
So, since the beginning of this pandemic, we've made an effort to really be transparent about what we knew about the COVID-19 and the impacts on our community. So when we were shut down, it was a little easier because of the fact that we were shut down and we were reporting out the numbers of employees who were impacted, but a lot of these employees may not have been at school. So it was a kind of a different dynamic, but we did want our communities to know about that, what we knew at the time. So now we're back face to face, and we've had to also deal with the same type of situation in terms of how we, address the incidents that we are aware of, and then also let our community know. So we're in that first stage, and we knew we would get here. So we're looking at ways to make sure we communicate with our parents, teachers, and employees now that we're back to face. So we had 3 particular different incidents, positive cases that we are aware of. And for all of our employees, we're continuing to report all the employees that we're aware of, because our employees are required to report that information to their administrators so that we can effectively address and clear them to return. So we did have one employee from Price Elementary School last week, and so that was out there in the community. I know we discussed that last week. And then this week, we became aware of two separate positive cases involving students. One at Attica Elementary and the other at Chief Brody Elementary School. So with every case, what happens, of course, is the contact tracing that has to take place, as well as disinfection at the school sites as needed. And then, working with the individuals who may be contacts to make sure that they are quarantined and cleared before they are able to return to campus. So all of the processes and procedures that we put in place, it looks like our staff and our teams at the schools really understand and are moving quickly to address any situation that we become aware of. And what I'm learning is that right now, because of the way the schedule is, where we're doing 2 days online, 2 days face-to-face, and then we have a day for interventions on Friday, that's actually benefited us because we're not talking about any positive cases that have been continually at school, right? So what you have is, if you came to school on Thursday and you didn't come to school Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, by the time we do get a positive, we can pretty much identify what's pretty much a limited contact at the school and the individuals who might be involved, so we can address the situation directly. I think so right now, the way we're set up, it does enable us to, I believe, directly and safely address and monitor the situations at our schools, but it definitely is going to pose a challenge as we move forward and start to reopen, for further face-to-face.
Right.
But at this time, again, what we know is we know of those two positive cases. We are contacting and have contacted all the individuals who are identified as contacts and are working with public health to make sure that they are cleared before they come back. My experience with the employees that were involved in the Price Elementary School is that those who are quarantined were also arranged to be tested. And then obviously, if there's no positive test, they still have to stay in quarantine until they were cleared to come back to the office. So, a similar approach will be done for, the contacts at Chief Brody and Attica Elementary.
What about the status of I believe it was with the education stabilization funds? I know we kind of touched on this last week, but has there been any update?
Last week we really we spent a lot of time working with different groups. So that included our school administrators at GDOE. It included the administrators of our private nonprofit schools, which include all of our charter schools and private schools together, and then also with school leadership teams that involve teacher leaders at all of our schools. And we were joined by Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio and his staff as well, because they do have a portion of funds that are allocated to the governor's office, about $33 million, in addition to the $110 million that GDOE has to decide on how to spend. We are looking at a timeline of about, I believe, before the end of February, we want to submit our budget proposal to USDOE, and by that time we have gathered input, prioritized the request, and then put together what we hope can be approved by USDOE so the funds can become available. In my conversation with our stakeholders, what I've said is, look, we had about $42 million that came in, and that was really aimed at immediate response. We were hit by COVID-19, funds came in, so the question was, we're in shutdown mode, but we need to figure out how to keep our employees, students safe, and then also how to make the rapid shift to distance learning. Now with this additional set of funds, we're looking more at what it's going to take to recover from the pandemic. So, in my mind, that means we started face-to-face instruction. What is it going to take to be able to maximize face-to-face instruction in a safe school environment, going forward? So the discussion we're having right now with our stakeholders really has been focused on not just continuing with distance learning and strengthening technology and all of that, but also how can we improve the facilities in which our students are going to be, spending their day in. So talking about air quality, improvements and upgrades to air conditioning, air purification, looking at ways to facilitate physical distancing on campus. So there was discussion about things from plexiglass dividers to canopy repairs, and also how to keep areas, really sanitized. So looking at restrooms and, again, more hand washing and water bottle filling stations and so forth. So, it is really looking forward and looking at that light at the end of the tunnel and trying to define what the new normal is going to look like for schools. So I like that conversation. It really is focused on, let's get our kids back to school. We know they need to be back, and as long as the community is safe, that strategy is, is there for us to pursue. But we have to really realize that we're not going to get out of this and then go back to the way things were before. We can envision a future of face masks, of physical distancing, hand sanitizers and all of that. So what else can we do to make sure that as parents and students consider and opt to return to school, that we can really provide them a greater assurance that the environment at school is safer, given our experience and given the impacts of the pandemic.
John, I wanted to give you an opportunity to respond to some of the concerns that were raised last week when we had Catholic School Superintendent Juan Flores on the air, and he was expressing frustration with the entire procurement process. Do you have any updates or a response to what he was talking about?
Well, I understood he was on the radio and, had public comments. And then, of course, we interact with them, on a day-to-day basis with staff who are available to answer any questions that he has. And so all I can say about that is that, procurement is required for these, for the expenditures of these federal funds. And I think I indicated to him that, the items that he was requesting, the requisitions were entered in the first week of January and were awarded at the end of January. With regard to the delivery of those goods and services, obviously it's up to, it depends on the vendors and the availability of those goods to be delivered from the vendor. So, my comment to that is, if you get your requisitions entered in the beginning of January and awarded before the end of January, that might be a government record as far as procurement goes. And I'm joking to my team because I was telling them, I said, hey, some of these Catholic school procurements are going faster than ours. So, it's a part of the process. We all know that we have to go through all those steps. It's not easy. It's sometimes very frustrating because we have a high volume of goods that are being ordered, and you want all of them to move quickly and at the same time. So he's asked, just to be updated on the information. I have staff saying, look, just give him regular updates, because I know that his administrators, some of whom have reached out to me, directly to share what they're, what's happening in their schools. We know that they also need to be talking to their parents and students and letting them know what's happening. So, I do, have a difference of opinion when it comes to criticizing the staff that I know are working very hard to try to get this done. But at the same time, we all want the same thing. We want our kids to be safe. And I've told the staff to please keep them updated regularly with weekly updates, whatever we can. But we're all in the same boat. I mean, we all have to go through the same requirements. And yes, I think as we look at the $110 million ahead, we are looking at the ways to enhance, staffing to support that. Kind of tough when your budget got cut 30 million and you're facing another $18 million in projected cuts to start talking about adding staff. But with $110 million coming, we're gonna have to find a way to address that need, and that's an ongoing area that we do want to address.
Well, speaking of cuts, have you had any further discussion with, Senator San Augustine or your oversight chair regarding the concerns you have about this potential $18 million cut since we last spoke?
We haven't yet, but I know our chair and vice chair, we're going to be scheduling meetings, I believe, with both the appropriations chair, Senator San Augustine, Senator Nelson, our education chair, and also Speaker Terlahi as well. So and we will be making the rounds. We know this is we realize that there is a major budgetary challenge that affects the entire island and all agencies. And we know that over the next, 7 to 8 months, we're going to have to figure out what is, going to happen to ensure that we're able to function. So we will have those conversations. We also are monitoring the federal side, and we're kind of we're hopeful that the federal side will continue to come through in terms of some of the supports that are being discussed in the $1.9 trillion package that President Biden has been pushing and has been making its way through Congress. We recognize that there are supports for state and local government, which I think will help the government of Guam, and also an additional round of funding that potentially would be reserved for education as well. So, there are lots of things that could happen over the next few weeks and months that would impact that budget discussion. So we're just kind of monitoring all of those and of course doing our homework internally to figure out, what those impacts will be under the worst case and best case scenarios.
Mm-hmm. It's been a while. We've heard about charter schools, so I'm not sure if at one point GDOE kind of oversaw, I want to say, the finances of charter schools. I don't know if that's still kind of in place, but I noticed the charter schools, they're scheduled for an oversight hearing tomorrow. Is GDOE participating in that at all, or is it separated now?
Yeah, we're not. I'm not planning to because we no longer have any role with the charter schools, nor do we have any role with the Charter School Council.
Okay.
So we hope that if we're needed, we can definitely we're available to be contacted and provide any support that's needed. And we had done that. I believe we had done that in our role in the past. I don't know that it was always favorably received when we identify that these are issues that need to be addressed. But I do think that obviously those issues that were addressed weren't made up. And I think, of course, it's just the role of other agencies now that have to be able to address that, including the public auditor and the Charter School Council. So we stand by ready to assist if there is any need. But at this point, we don't really have any connection to the charter schools from the standpoint of our local laws or local budget. We do continue to support them with federal funds, and so they are entitled to their share, and we do our best to try to facilitate their needs through that process.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure because with the pandemic, I kind of it lost track of what happened, and so when I saw that, it's like I wonder if GDOE still monitors their spending, because I do recall some of the reports that GDOE would put out regarding charter schools and things that weren't necessarily funded, I guess, or the way they spent the money.
I think everything I've heard, it all comes down to financial sustainability, right? And so I think with charter schools, the challenge is also to make sure that whatever funding is provided, whether it's through the government or through private funds, that there's a plan to ensure that the organization can survive, so that it can continue to provide the services that it's committing to students. So, and our wish is that they all have the ability to do that. In our role before, we were charged with doing that kind of analysis. What is their budget? What are they spending? Are they on track? And it wasn't always well received, because there's maybe this notion that we were trying to be competitive with them, and we're putting out information that wasn't favorable. But at the same time, now that we're not no longer responsible, we don't have that role. We can focus on our own internal improvements that we need to make as well. So we again we stand by, and we do hope that there is a solution for them as well. They serve students, and we care about the students getting an education. And in this pandemic situation, it doesn't help anybody. I mean, we're all kind of trying to make it through. So, I hope the legislature will, at least find an opportunity to not just find the reasons why there are issues, but, if there's support needed, we all need that. We all need the legislature's support to get through this situation.
Soup, I wanted to ask about return to face-to-face. I know you had said that when we open it up, parents express interest in getting their kids in. Have we folded any new students into the face-to-face modules?
We haven't expanded face-to-face, and so It is still the 2 cohorts, and I know that schools again have been operating on their own to be able to maximize within the existing cohorts. I have raised this in a discussion with the board, and I believe we'll be scheduling an update for the board soon. And then I'm sure that discussion will come up at that point. We do regular updates on for the board on the recovery efforts. So that's been a discussion I know that the members want to have. I do think that, again, there's such a tough balancing act. So at the same time that we want our kids to come back, and I know that many of us are pushing for more face-to-face, we are starting to see that this is just the 3rd week. We have a couple of cases of students. We want to see how that plays out. We have a 2nd round of vaccinations that are for employees that we want to see, come to fruition. So they're just pieces that we want to see in place to be able to move to the next phase of this. So right now, again, as we're looking at the cases and making sure that all of our protocols and procedures are going well, that we can, feel comfortable with our approach. I know the 2nd doses for educators and staff are really scheduled around the week of, around the dates about February 20th to maybe 25th, in that range. And we're working with the governor's office and public health to make sure that those are arranged so that we can complete that. We have 1,400 employees who could be fully immunized after the 2nd round, and hopefully more are taking advantage of it, that we will soon be added. And at that point, I think that really bodes well for the future expansion of in-class instruction, and maybe students and families will also have the confidence as well to go back.
I just wanted to close, unless Bree had any other questions. I remember last year, I don't know if it was with the ESF, but you were talking about there's a certain amount of funds that was supposed to go to counseling students about just the pandemic. So anything on that? And then also, I know just personally of students who are just struggling with a lack of motivation, right? Whether they're online or whatever, just given everything that has happened. Is there anything in place to kind of deal with that too? I mean, but it's obviously going to be difficult if you don't have the bodies in the classroom, right?
Right. So socio-emotional wellness has been a key component of our recovery effort. So for the most part, a lot of the sessions that we've been holding have really been for employees, for training, right? I mean, it's really training and to provide training for our employees to not only be prepared when we do go back to face-to-face to identify situations that might require further attention or referrals, but also about self-care. We all have to take care of ourselves through this pandemic situation. So a lot of our efforts to date really supported by our partnership with behavioral health and our internal team of psychologists and counselors, as well as with materials that we're able to share with our employees. That's been the focus. Now that we're coming back face to face, this is where, and as we expand face to face, this is where, we're going to have to put a lot of that training into action and continue to provide services over the coming, hopefully over the coming school year, to those who need, the additional services. So some of the funding that we're talking about, we'll be looking at not just additional materials to help with the continued training and helping to address the needs of our students, but also potentially for additional contracted services to provide that level of support should we need it over the coming year. But you're absolutely right that students have been through a long period of isolation. I have 2 of my own who have been through that situation, and it is, there's some positives, but there are obviously a lot of issues raised in terms of their lack of socialization and what it's going to take for them to return to their normal routines. One of the kind of, I would say, bright lights is that we started with interscholastic practices. And so it's been good to see and hear, what the kids are doing just to get back into some kind of normal routine for those who are in sports. But again, it's not normal. They have to do the temperature checks, the sign-ins, the masks, the pods, the cleaning, the equipment. I mean, it's a different, operation now, but there is a lot of benefit to having them back and participating, with each other. So we're in discussion with the Lieutenant Governor about the opening of a sports, a limited sports season I mean, I think a couple of seasons we're able to do, but really focusing on low contact sports and then maybe the moderate contact sports by the end of the school year and seeing if that's possible. Just another opportunity to bring kids back. Otherwise, the strategy is to get kids back to face, and the way we do that is to keep the community safe and to invest funds to make our school facilities safe so that we can bring back our kids, not have to worry about them going in and out of shutdown and back again, trying to give them a stable, safe environment where we can then begin to help them in the recovery from this, from COVID-19. I don't want to be in a situation where we're going back and forth and we start up and then we close down. That doesn't help the situation. It makes it more, difficult to sustain. So if we can focus on safety, invest in our facilities, and take the expansion of face-to-face gradually so we can, be assured that we're on the right track, then we can begin a very stable recovery for our students, and that's the plan.
Okay.
All right, thanks, John. Really appreciate it.
All right, thank you. See you next week.
All right, see
Okay,
you next
John.
week.
Right on. Jon Fernandez, GDOE Superintendent.